In the agricultural industry, we generally speaking have a large number of independently minded producers who decide from one year to the next what they're going to produce. But on the other hand, the nature of those products means that often they are affected greatly by changes in weather from year to year, changes in pests and diseases, and so on. Also, some countries, those effects may be very regionalised or localised, and some countries may have those problems of pest and disease or weather, and other countries don't. So that in one year, particular areas or particular countries may have very high levels of demand for particular products to import them into their countries because of the domestic problems that they've had. And so you can often get these enormous fluctuations in supply over time, which then affects the price. Producers then look at the high price and think, fantastic, we can get such a high price for our products, let's all go out and produce loads more. The following year you then have a glut of produce, the price plummets and so on. So you tend often to get these big fluctuations in price over time.
One of the earliest economic laws that people wrote down, there's no such thing as an economic law really, but the term is used, was what's called Engels' law. And Engels' law essentially says that as household incomes go up, households will spend a smaller and smaller proportion of their income on food. And that's a natural thing and it's a good thing. But the consequence, I suppose, from a household perspective of that reducing proportion of expenditure going on food is that it's one of the factors that leads to households being less connected to their food production. If you're spending upwards of 50% of your income on food, then you're going to worry about whether you're using it effectively and carefully and whether you're buying good quality food. But if it's down to where it is in developed countries at around the sort of 5 or 6% level, we probably are much less careful about how we spend that money, and we worry a lot more about the quality of the other goods that we're a much larger part of our household income.
I think over the last 30 or 40 years, the household spend on food has gone down from somewhere around 25% to under 7%. And people are very busy, and the rise of the big supermarkets and the availability of cheap ready meals, and I think the lack of nutrition in some of those ready meals is quite staggering really, and the amount of salt and sugars which are used to put the flavours in.
It's very much we have to have a longer term view. In terms of sustainability, if you go to countries like Holland and Germany, they're in things for the long term. In terms of sustainability, we're about 20 years behind where those countries are. So it has to be right the way through from consumer, and governments have to get behind it, and potentially with taxes on certain things, in terms of influencing different things, because it's, for instance, we produce products that are sustainable, and we have LEAF accreditation, which we feel is very important. But it's very difficult to get that over to the consumer to say this is very important and it may cost a little bit more, but by buying this you're making a difference. In terms of that, then there's the whole education process of trying to keep consumers in that whole remit of sustainability.
Agriculture, of course, is the key to food security. Agriculture is the industry that produces most of the food that we eat. Very little is industrially produced in the factory or the laboratory. And so the challenge that agriculture has is definitely, again, the sustainable intensification challenge, which is to increase output with fewer inputs, but also not to damage the environment in the process. So that sustainability issue is a really difficult one. There are a number of different ways in which one can increase production and productivity, but you have to be really careful that you're not damaging the environment by doing that. And in the case of livestock, of course, many livestock produce methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas, and so we have to be careful that agriculture isn't contributing unnecessarily to climate change, for example, and to the detriment of the environment.